Hey, Shalom, double honors to the apostles of GreatMillStone. Honestly, will be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. We'll try a little something now. The screen recorder. You can hear the cars in the background and that, so I do apologize for that. But without much further ado, I wanted to go into this article right here, pretty much going into showing you that the situation that you have out here, especially out here within the Euphrates, the Middle East and all of that could very easily, and it's gonna, turn into an all-out World War III. Okay, many of us here, especially at GreatMillStone, have been quoting, it can be quoted, and it's known that we already said that World War III has commenced. Okay, it's already begun, and this is a brief example to go into that. Obviously, I've done a video similar to this before, regarding the whole Syria situation. Also, too, you had a few, things happening out here with Iran. Saudi Arabia is switching side now. That was big time news. Okay, that was big time news because as far as the West is concerned, especially America with the OPEC nations, okay, with the OPEC conglomerate of nations where you had oil sold in dollars, and predominantly it was Saudi Arabia, basically propping up the dollar. Okay, they was basically propping up the dollar, and that's pretty much not null and void now. Okay, that's no more. They still got the thing going on, but these different investors out there within Saudi Arabia, they're looking for the new big dog in the house. And with the rise of Russia, okay, the rise of Russia with Vladimir Putin and all of these guys and all of these cats, you've seen a shift towards a Eastern global market, okay, which is gonna which is gonna bring about the demise of the dollar and all of that. So let me get into this a little bit. Okay, like I said, I've done a video like this in the past, but I use this as a premise, and we can see the different ways that this war really, this is one of the different ways this war is going to begin, man. And we already said it's already begun, because you can see in here a whole bunch of dudes is throwing grenades at each other. They're shooting guns at each other, and they're all over the side. You got America shooting, doing what they're doing, so-called fighting terrorists or whatever. You see everybody's fighting against each other. Okay, so it says a conflict in Syria is often referred to as a civil war, meaning conflicts between the citizens of the same country. That's how you know a whole bunch of people are retarded, because that's what they'll say. They say that the Syrian civil war, but it's not a civil war. Okay, it started off as a civil war. Okay, you had the people out there within Syria. They wanted to topple off the government, because you had two, Sunni and Shia Islams. Okay, and you had a minority ruling over the majority. Okay, you had a conflict of ideas. Okay, it started. So it goes on. It says it certainly started so of Syrian citizens. They took to the streets in 2011, right, to demand democracy and corruption, etc., etc. Okay, so it says but what's everyone doing in Syria? So I said it's complicated. The best way to start off is by looking at the war as a conflict between those who, in broad terms, support and oppose Assad. Okay, now it's going to list out who's for what agenda, etc., etc., and who's against that agenda. All right. So it says Russia, right, carries out airstrikes to provide political support to the UN. So therefore, Syria. Okay, Iran. Now that's important because you got the Iranians involved in it. Okay, and it says it provides armed military advisors and reportedly combats troops. Right, Hezbollah, Lebanese Shia movement. Right, sent thousands of fighters. Okay, and then you got Shia Muslim militia. All right, by Iran for Iraq, by Afghanistan, etc., etc. Okay. Then you got the folks on the other side, right? You got some other geezers on the other side. So you got Turkey involved in there. Okay, you got the Gulf Arab states. Obviously, you got the United States in there involved. and then you got the Jordanians, all right? And, you know, it says what each one is providing all of this, that, and the third, right? So then goes on to say, the term rebel is used to describe a huge and diverse array of fighters. No, and that's Esau with his news speech. So you never really know who he's talking about and what he's talking about when you're listening to the so-called Western media and that. And that could be very confusing, okay? So it goes on to say, and some of whom cooperate with jihadists like from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, right, and Al-Qaeda linked alliance, right? And it says, and this point is also worth noting that although the U.S. supports some rebel groups, it has not intentionally attacked the Syrian government directly until Friday, and this is going back in April. So, you know, you have these different groups funded, right, and those groups were used to attack the Assad regime, okay, and really up until April of this year, a couple of months ago, you really have a direct attack by the United States, okay? So let's carry on here. There's a few bits here that's worth mentioning. Pretty much, you can see from there, all right, from just that alone, you can see that you got all of these bunch of people right there within the, you know, round about in that Euphrates region, and they all got their own vested interests, okay? They're all fighting for their so-called vested interests. And the fact of the matter is, it's only going to take a little bit of a push to get that thing spewing over, okay? Which is going to be a beautiful thing, okay? Once this thing spews over and it's all out World War III, as pertaining to the scriptures, like the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, okay, Revelations, all of these scriptures that talk about the war out there within the Euphrates River, it's going to be beautiful for the men of the Lord, okay? So let me read a little bit more. It says Turkey's also fighting ISIS. So this is you know, this is the other thing that's happening. So you got, on the one hand, you got the so-called fight to topple over the Assad regime, and on top of that, you also got the fight for against so-called ISIS, and we know ISIS has been funded by none other than the United States. So it's all a big mess. It's all a whole complicated mess, but it's been done that way so the serfs, okay, the people that are just on a basic level of understanding. Not everybody goes into geopolitics, okay? In fact, most people don't even care about it, all right? As long as they get their Costa coffee and their Starbucks coffee, most people go all right. The fact of the matter is, okay, the geopolitics and you know, proxy wars that are being played out, and the complexity of these different situations is going to be used as a means of toppling over governments and basically going into war, okay? And a lot of people ain't gonna know what they're gonna be fighting for. A lot of people think that they're just out there fighting ISIS, all right? But we know that when the Russians, and it goes into it in this article, you're more than welcome to read this on your own, okay? It goes into it in this article how that when Russia came up in there, because like you're seeing from here, Russia's got their own vested interest within Syria, okay? And you can see how Russia and Iran basically are on the same side. You know, China's involved up in that motherfucker too. So I'm going back onto the point I was making, which was to say, when Russia rolled up in there, they basically eliminated all of these so-called ISIS threats. Well, yeah, hold on a minute. United States was in there. What was they doing? Okay, and they was going for a different agenda to topple over the Syria thing, the Assad regime. Okay, all right. So I mean, you know, this whole thing is, you know, is crazy out there right now. All right, but it's all beautiful because these are the rumors of wars spoken about in Mark 13th chapter. Okay, nation rising up against nation. Okay, kingdom against kingdom. All right, and the ultimate end all be all of it is going to be World War III. Okay, so pretty much with that, hopefully that was I wouldn't say edification because you know, this is old information. You already don't know that, but certainly hopefully it was this is a sturdy reminder that we're living in these are the last days of the last days, man. Okay. Right, so with that, I'm going to say, all praise unto Yah, Bashim Yahshai, double honors to the apostles of GreatMillStone. Honestly, brothers will be pushing the truth in sincerity. The Lord's will get to do this another time. Shalom.